Hey folks, welcome to another episode of Arcane Assist. This week I'm joined by Evan. How's it going, Evan?
Pretty good.
And we're going to be playing some Troll Bloods. And what did you bring, Evan?
I brought Grimkin with the Heretic.
Yeah, so it's going to be another Grimkin video, but this time I'm playing a Troll Blood list that I want to test out for champions. We wanted to get a practice opportunity before Captain Con. This video will, of course, come out after Captain Con. So I get to see the list that I played, or a list very close to the list that I played at Captain Con.
Yeah, and I'm playing just something I felt like playing. I hadn't played the Heretic in Dark Menagerie yet. The last time we showed him off on the channel, it was with a gun line in Bump in the Night. So now is something completely different with him. So I hope you enjoy that.
Yeah, and without further ado, we'll show you the video and get into our lists. So we rolled off to see who went first. I won the die roll and get to... Sorry, I lost the die roll.
And I get to go first.
And I picked side here.
So during deployment, I'll talk about my list a little bit. It's the Heretic in Dark Menagerie. It's got 2 Cage Ragers, 3 Skin and Moans, 3 Crabbits, a Death Knell, 4 Gremlin Swarms, Carry on a Rose, and a Glimmer Imp.
So you've definitely got a list that's very, very focused around a huge number of heavies.
Yes, it's a lot of heavies that are gradually, as the game gets going, going to have higher armor, going to be harder to kill, and I'm going to cause problems by stealing your spells as well.
So it's a relatively low model count list, which is interesting to play against. I'm playing Kolgrimma in Band of Heroes theme. It's appealing to me to play against Grimkin in preparation for a Champions event because they tend to be a very dominant faction in Champions. Having a limited roster of casters means they maximize their power in that format. I elected to play Band of Heroes rather than something like Storm of the North or Power of Dunia because I really wanted access to the remove from play tools, especially with regard to Cricks that I expect to be popular at the event. So my list is Kolgrimma, the Winter Witch. Her battle group includes an Earthborn, a Mauler, and an Axer. She has a maximum unit of champions with Scaldi. She has a minimum unit of champions with no attachments. She has a maximum unit of Creel Stones. Now, I've said this a couple times on the channel. I believe it should always be max Creel Stones first, and then if absolutely necessary, dropping down to min. I think that's especially important in lists that use a lot of infantry. I've got the Stone Scribe Elder in that unit. And then I've got a minimum unit of Long Riders, a maximum unit of Fenblades with their officer and drummer. And then I've got a Chronicler and a Fellcaller hero.
Just to make a note on the Creelstone comment, last week you saw John's list that had a minimum Creelstone. Still some debate going on there.
John and I have a difference of opinion on this issue. Now, it's a bit of a nuanced debate, and we've been back and forth about it a lot. And this is actually kind of one of the neat things that happens when you've got like 2 really strong players in the same meta kind of playing a faction. Is my approach to trolls is radically different from John's approach to trolls, and both of them are often very successful. I'm not sure obviously I believe there's a definitive right answer, and apparently I think it's my way. But John is actually much more experienced in the faction, and he believes that Max Creelstone is better than it was before. We are absolutely in agreement on that, but he thinks there's still quite a bit of debate, and a lot of the time you're quite fine to go down to a min Creelstone.
So, my first turn. I apparate all my Gremlin Swarms forward, and I start running my pieces. I think that a lot of my heavies are going to be just fine, just safe on this first turn, so they're moving up as quickly as possible because I have limited number of pieces to contest these zones, although typically it's going to be Gremlin Swarms fulfilling that purpose. I need to put them in such a position that Kolgrimma isn't just going to spray them to death immediately because she has the perfect tool to deal with Gremlin Swarms, that being a spray 10 magic attack that not only ignores their stealth, but can hurt them.
At this point, it's probably worth addressing which Arcana you brought.
Yes. So in this game, I brought my Trump Arcana, which is Reckoning. I brought Ruin, because I want to be able to stop that spell at least once. And I brought Accursed, which is going to prevent you from using Tough, which I think is going to be one of those really swingy turns that, or at least the plan is to have a really swingy turn that allows me to get a ton of corpses on all of my Skin and Moans by just not having to worry about Trollkin Tough for a turn.
That's quite relevant because Tough in this list especially really helps it stay ahead on Attrition. At this point, it's probably worth talking about the trigger conditions for those Arcana. That's something that I feel like people don't go over quite enough.
Fair enough.
So for Reckoning, the trigger is specifically... you can play at any time an enemy model destroys or removes from play a friendly faction warrior model. in your control. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. So Reckoning requires you to do a warrior model, which is one of the reasons we initially showcased Heretic in a more warrior-centric list. It also triggers off Destroy or Remove from Play, which is really relevant because my Theme Force, of course, has the ability to remove from play a lot of things on melee attacks. Next, we'll talk a little bit about Desolation. Or sorry, not Desolation, Accursed. Now, Accursed is specifically when I damage a model who has a corpse token. Is that right?
Yes.
So you can play that anytime. The model has to be in your command range. The Heretic has a pretty generous command range of 10, so it's actually a really good one to use with him, especially in this Theme Force where all of your
Accursed
heavies...
is control.
Sorry, Accursed is control.
Yeah.
No worries. Well, either way, it's really, really good in the Theme Force where you start with all of these corpse tokens. And then the last one you picked was Ruin. And Ruin is when I target a model in your control area with a spell.
Correct.
So it protects everything in your control area, and it also removes my upkeeps.
So, Tim, you're measuring out and proxying a spray here with Kolgrimma, trying to see if you can get both Gremlin Swarms on turn 1.
Yeah, so obviously it would be great to just remove 2 Gremlin Swarms. Totally worth putting a ton of effort into. I check this 3 ways to Sunday, and the way Evan's positioned here, the line of sight blocking pieces don't allow Kolgrimma to be either far enough forward or at exactly enough of an angle that she can get both these Gremlin Swarms. It's actually kind of a fun trigonometry puzzle if you look at the way the triangles work out there. She has to be just a little bit closer for the angle of the vector of the 2 Gremlin Swarms to equal the degrees necessary for her to attack them both. I opt instead to position a proxy base there so that I'm going to get one of the Gremlin Swarms, and Runebearer moves up, casts Harmonious Exaltation on Kolgrimma, and we start jumping into the turn.
I eyeballed it.
Yeah, I mean, you eyeballed it well, is what you did. I guess that comes from experience play. The stone just advanced in the first turn. I use Awaken the Stone to generate some fury on them. At this point, I put up the aura, and they rolled a 3, so they've got 2 fury in there. One of the challenges of the Max Stone with Kolgrimma is, especially when going second, she often needs to use clouds defensively and spend a lot of her stack to kind of protect her army on the approach. So it's a little bit hard for her to fuel that stone. I've talked about how I still think, because it's so powerful if you go first, and because you can usually get it up to parity in the late game, it's really important to still do it. But as you see, I'm going to have a little bit of trouble filling the stone and adequately protecting my army. I kill one of the Gremlin Swarms. I place a cloud touching the forest and touching the obstruction on the center of the board. I look to position another cloud, but don't have a great spot for it. And I put Owl's Wisdom on the Earthborn, who I stuck right up in the middle of the board there.
Yeah, I failed to mention on my turn, as we were talking very intently about the Gremlin Swarms and Arcana, that I threw Fury up on the middlemost Skin and Moans, and I actually put a firewall down that the Earthborn did not care about and ran through. So, things to note.
Yeah, the elemental immunity on the Earthborns just continues to be super relevant. I think one of the key observations from Mark 2 to Mark 3 is the Earthborn used to be a really offensive damage dealing heavy, and now his role has changed really dramatically into a kind of support and ultimate defensive heavy. So I often like to think about him as something that can do late game damage work, but most of the time is about efficient piece trading and powerful delivery. So I'm putting him forward there in the hopes that I can trade him for a Skin and Moans and be up. My Fenblades got Pathfinder from the Fellcaller. They ran aggressively to flood that whole zone. They got Tail of Mists from the Chronicler. The Champion unit runs just to take position behind that rubble where they're expecting that their Relentless Charge from Scaldy will come in use. I positioned the Long Riders. I think at the beginning of this report I said that this list had a minion of champions. That's not actually true. It is an Axer. There's a different version of this list that instead of the Axer had a minion of champions, and I've been kind of oscillating between the two. I was just confused because I played in a tournament this weekend where I had the min champs version of the list. Anyway, this is an Axer, and he was useful to put Rush on the Earthborn first turn to give it as much board position as he did. Muller hangs back for late game. Axer hang back for late game, and that champion it is hoping to deliver themselves into that right-hand zone. And the Long Riders there as backup because they're really, really great at clearing circle zones.
So, off to me. Tim's presented me a bit of a puzzle. I think without question I have to commit a Skin and Moans to killing that Earthborn just because it's so far up and I have to deal with it. And I know I'm going to lose that, but what do I lose it for? Now, I debate charging in with the Skin and Moans, trying to kill that Earthborn, and then rotating Fury off onto a different Skin and Moans to give it that defense back. But I'm not sure if that's worth it at this point. I figure I'll see how the turn goes and decide whether or not I want to rotate it later on. I run my Glimmer Imp up, and it is going to provide some negative defense for that Earthborn. So it's not near water or anything, but it is pretty high armor right now. I'm 22 under the stone and next to the obstruction.
Yeah.
So I can't really afford to miss attacks.
The other thing that's potentially relevant is it kind of towed against the corner of the obstruction. So it's very possible that at a lot of angles you'd have to attack it from, you might be giving it +2 defense. So that Glimmer Imp is going to functionally counteract that. The other thing that I considered is that maybe you'd try to Gallows it so that you could take it without really having to give me a Skin and Moans, which is why it got Owl's Wisdom this turn.
Yeah. And I also Enrage it with Carry On a Rose just to confirm that this is going to kill it, because with Enrage, a single corpse that it gets to start with because of the theme, and Fury, it goes to POW 22, which is dice even. So it charges in. I don't have to attack over a wall, so you're effectively def 10, needing not double ones to hit, and I'm just going dice even, doing what I can. Got a good chunk out of you the first time, and I just keep buying attacks until this Earthborn eventually dies. I think I had 1 Fury to spare at the end of this, too. So this Skin and Moans is now collected a corpse on top of the one it started with. So it's sitting at nice arm 18, and then the Death Knell is also going to move up and give it some armor. Now, I think at this point in the game, I've actually feel like I've misplaced where the Death Knell is. I don't like it being so far onto the left flank, and I want it to be much more central for me. So that hole that is now created with the Skin and Moans moved is where that Death Knell is eventually going to end up. And I feel like it needs to be there to provide armor to the beasts that are going to have to go into the bottom zone. So I feel like this Gremlin Swarm is going to move all the way to the right-hand side of the zone, make it as difficult as possible for Tim to deal with it, because in this list, essentially this turn, one of the plans for this turn is that Tim has to either use the stone to get rid of Incorporeal on a Gremlin Swarm, and Stealth for that matter, in order to kill it, or use Kolgrimma in order to kill it. But I'm also committing Gremlin Swarms to both zones, so if he wants to deal with both of them, he has to split Kolgrimma from the stone, which makes it a pretty risky proposition for her to actually try to do things and use her spray effectively.
Because without the benefit of that stone, she's only armor 15.
Yeah.
She can kind of die to anything.
Yeah. The other plan for this bottom zone is that I'm going to throw a Cage Rager in it, and at arm 21, it's going to be incredibly difficult for those Fenblades to deal with it. So there's the other Gremlin Swarm hugging the top of the zone on the left-hand side there. Well, my left-hand side. And just being a nuisance. This Skin and Moans plays super conservatively, just hides behind a Gremlin Swarm in the bottom zone, making sure that champions can't get to it. The bottom Cage Rager is going to move up just so I can start arcing spells through it. It's going to be there just in case I want to throw a Rebuke up onto the champions. Again, forcing Kolgrimma to move up to the top if she wants to remove that with Owl's Wisdom. And then the stone have to go to the bottom if he wants to be able to kill that Gremlin Storm and start scoring the zone.
I really like the play with the Skin and Moans in the central zone here, like the second one. You've got him tucked kind of right behind that building, which is actually a very, very difficult area to access. I mean, I might be able to get some Fenblade charges, but in terms of the heavy hitting pieces of my list, the Mauler, the Champions, even the Axer, like pieces that can really get at him, he's very, very well screened. Yeah,
he's there just to basically continue to pressure you with threats, because this Skin and Moans isn't going to die to a couple Fenblades, and if you decide to charge me with Fenblades, he's going to get some corpses off of those.
Yeah.
He's just going to be that much harder to deal with in the late game.
And you've repositioned that Death Knell as described earlier, and we jump into the Troll turn 2.
Not quite. The Heretic's doing some stuff. He threw up Rebuke on that top unit of champions through the Cage Rager.
Good for him.
He's debating whether or not he wants to cycle Fury. I think in the end I choose not to, but I decide to throw down another Firewall just to where those Fenblades are, so that I'm forcing them to go in another direction. because they do not want to eat that POW 12. In fact, they just die if they do most of the time, right?
I mean, they might tough, but yeah, it's
Fair
not
enough.
a good scene.
So yeah.
And yeah, so that limited lane that I had with some Fen Blades on that Skin and Bones, even that you've dramatically restricted with the firewall.
Yeah, other than that, it's just mostly Krabbits running to protect what they can, the Heretic moving behind the Death Knell, being pretty unassailable, and my pieces being placed somewhat conservatively to contest zones and split up your force.
I think that's a better play than Cycling Fury. I mean, we talked a little bit about this during the game, but +1 defense on that Skin and Bones is unlikely to be the deal breaker for it. Conversely, you really, really want the positioning game that firewall gives you.
Yeah, I think this is one of the best spells on his card.
It's nice when you can say that about several spells.
It's true.
The Long Riders here receive a Bull Rush order. I slam with the first one. He has to go directly to where the Skin and Bones. He's the only person who could really get that lane. The other one charges over top of his buddy. And the last one just kind of tucks behind that building. We resolve the charge attack first because I'm hoping to slam the Skin and Bones out of the way. And we do a little bit of damage, not a ton. At this point, the slam hits and slams him 5 inches, which is actually a little further than I expected to go with him. I did Warcry the Long Riders first. In a couple of games before, when I've needed things like 5s or 6s to hit, I've not Warcried them and regretted it when a key slam missed. So I'm actually pretty happy with this one.
You crush the damage roll.
Sure does. That's the follow-up damage roll on his bonus attack he's allowed to make when he gets into after the follow-up.
Yes, because he can follow up and then make a mount attack because he didn't.
Yeah,
charge.
it's really really sweet. It's a neat one because the mount is POW 14.
Yeah.
So you get a couple extra points of damage from it. So Kolgrimma moves up into position. First thing she does is Owl's Wisdom to remove Rebuke from the champion unit, which is why that unit doesn't, in my opinion, need a sorcerer in this unit. Like, it's not like absolutely essential. I look at a couple of different positioning options I've got here. She decides to vanish into position so that she can throw out a Hunter's Mark onto the Skin and Bones, giving those champions a little bit of extra distance on their charging, which is pretty important because I slammed them about 4 inches further than I needed to. I'm still excited to see what, just a bunch of champions on Evan's side of the board can be in terms of a problem.
Yeah. I mean, originally I thought the Rebuke play was going to force Kolgrimma up top, and it did. But she still hasn't dealt with the Gremlin Swarm, so I'm pretty okay with this. Like, she still had to come up top. She removed Rebuke, which is basically what I expected to have happen. And now I'm still contesting that zone, so we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, I opt to move the Stone unit next. Kolgrimma dumped some Fury into them to kind of get them going. This is the sort of turn 2, fill them back up play. They put up their aura, and they awaken so that they give so they top back off. And then we activate the unit of champions. Without further ado, they come charging in here, getting +1 strength from the Stone strength, and getting to be really, really aggressive against that Skin and Bones.
Yeah, this is more or less the reprisal I expected the Skin and Bones to have after going in on an Earthborn. Although, thankfully, now these champions are positioned basically in the middle of my army, and I can commit whatever piece I want to dealing with them.
Yeah, and that's maybe a little bit the risk reward with the slam there. I mean, maybe they didn't need the knockdown to deal with it, or maybe a slam at a different vector, although the vectors I had access to were pretty limited because slams are always directly to ward.
I mean, the other thing is, if you'd slammed me 1 more inch, like, these champions wouldn't be in.
Well, 10 inches got them pretty deep, so
Fair enough.
if it slammed you 1 more inch, you not only hit that wall and take an additional die on that boxcar's damage roll that I rolled, but you would probably still be in threat of like maybe 3 of the champions rather than all of them.
Fair enough.
And then I'm in a position to probably still do quite a bit of work. I do actually kill you on the 3rd champion's attack.
Yes.
Nevertheless, I'm pretty happy with the champions being this deep, and I'm seriously considering what the rest of the turn's unpacking is going to be about. One of the problems I'm experiencing is I really, really want these Fenblades to crash aggressively in the bottom zone into Evan's Cage Rager. But even if I kill it, I don't properly clear the zone. And there's a Crabbit there, and that flank is looking like it's going to collapse very slowly, especially because that Cage Rager just doesn't really go down to a bunch of POW 12s very quickly.
Yeah, not at arm 21 with 30-ish boxes.
32, I think, like quite a few, more than you would expect. He's I've often described him as a Menoth heavy, but like
not
better.
Inaccurate with Arcane Vortex being an option.
Yep, a Menoth heavy with the Trollstone aura. Seems fair. So these Fenblades are just going to charge through the Gremlin Swarm because they can't do anything about it, but it can't do anything about them. So they're at something of what you would call an impasse.
Correct.
They are no quarter mini-fitting this turn, so they get a little bit of extra distance on their charges. They also get Pathfinder. The guy over here is going to charge. He has line of sight over the firewall to this guy, but charges on a vector such that he goes largely through the forest. Does get a charge on the Cage Rager. I get a couple more guys who run or charge. The Fenblade unit has reposition, so I'm looking carefully into who connects into the charge and who ran, and as a result doesn't get to reposition. I don't do spectacularly on damage with them, but I soften up the targets I'm looking to soften up.
You do a good amount to the Crabbit.
Yeah, this Crabbit's pretty messed up. I think it's down to, what, 5 boxes at the end of this process?
Yeah, it's hurt.
Yeah.
Thankfully, I think you missed the second attack due to annoying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I couldn't get everybody out of that annoyance range, so c'est la vie.
So, Cage Rager is still up and kicking. I do believe I procced a curse at somewhere during there. The little token next to the Heretic has a big A on it.
Probably when the Skin and Bones got hit.
Yes.
Skin and Bones, who had 2 corpses, got pretty messed up. Chronicler is going to go ahead and put Tail of Mists on these guys again. The thing is, in Evan's list here, it really doesn't actually do me much good to use Hero's Tragedy because he doesn't really have any warrior models that can be knocked down.
Correct.
They can kill Fenblades.
Yes. I'm trying to think. Warrior models that can be knocked down. Well, Gremlin Swarms don't have melee attacks, so they can't do it. Carriana Rose doesn't have a melee attack. She can't do it. Heretic can be knocked down.
Divinity, I think.
Divinity actually.
Knocked down.
Hold on.
I think it means a blind and knocked down, something like that.
Sorry. Yes, he also can't be knocked down.
Yeah, so literally nothing. So I put Tail of Mists on them because I'm like, maybe he'll try for a clutch gallows on a Fenblade. Unlikely, but possible. If I had a beast over here, Charge of the Dire Trolls would have given me some gang against that Cage Rager, but alas, I don't really have disposable beasts in this list, with the possible exception of the Axer.
So, first thing I see here, the Heretic's going to go kill some champions, because he doesn't care about their stupid high defense.
There is a Skin and Bones-sized hole in the middle of the champion brick.
Correct.
So you can probably walk in there and get melee range to, what, 4 of them?
I think all but 1. I auto-hit and I throw Fury up on myself, so I'm dice -2.
So I spread out the damage on the first attack. Second attack, I spread the damage again. Third attack, I'm forced to take a tough check on that guy.
Which you don't get.
Which we immediately acknowledge that I don't get tough for 2 reasons. First, you procced a cursed. Second, I'm also in the entropic field of the death knell.
Correct.
So the big thing here is big damage spikes a third of the time get shrugged off by champions because of tough, and this turn it just doesn't happen. So when Evan spikes damage, I lose models. When he doesn't spike damage, I lose boxes. This is rough.
Both of those are bad. So I leave 4 of the champions alive. If you can see Tim's tablet right now, they don't have a lot of health.
It's a little rough. Not going to lie.
The one that I assume the one with 2 boxes there is actually the dead one. Or something like that. Nope. Anywho, not the point. Crabbit goes and attacks, but he doesn't have a mind, so he just misses. This Crabbit goes, charges, hits, and kills a Fenblade.
Again, no tough.
Chomp chomp.
Pretty effective.
Death Knell is getting corpses from these things happening as well. This Cage Rager is about to get a bunch of corpses, so kills a Fenblade, gets a corpse, no tough. Kills a Fenblade, gets a corpse. no tough, and he just keeps buying attacks.
Yeah, this is a huge swing turn for Grimkin because even though Evan's not rolling spectacularly with the Cage Rager here, he doesn't need to roll super well when their primary defensive tech, which is tough, is just gone.
Gremlin Swarm moves just to be more of a nuisance, try to block some more charge lanes or landing spots, and then I realized that's just not worth it, so he just moves a bit. Basically to be on the opposite side of the forest so that if Kolgrimma wants to come back down, she can't spray at him.
Yeah.
Also, there's an Arcane Vortex there if needed.
Gremlin Swarms are really annoying.
Correct. So, what's going to deal with these champions in the middle? I think it's going to be the Skin and Moans that was hiding behind the house last turn. He's going to go get his 2 corpses that he was going to get off the Fenblades, but they didn't come at him, so he didn't have to. And then the Skin and Moans in the top is probably going to go after that Mauler. I don't expect to kill that Mauler, but if I can do some damage to it, it's going to have a harder time later when Kolgrimma has to spend Fury to heal it, or it has to force to regenerate.
Now, I moved into this zone pretty aggressively with the Mauler. I probably didn't need to be that far up. If I was wise, I suspect I would have pre-measured the Skin and Bones threat range. Unfortunately, there's a lot in this list where I kind of have to eat the charge and then deliver a powerful reprisal, and that's tough against Grimkin because normally one of the things they don't have on you is threat range.
Yeah. So here, the Skin and Bones kills 2 champions. Starts buying on, I believe it's a Long Rider. Does a good amount of damage to that. Buys on another champion, killing it. It's gathered up to its maximum amount of corpses, so they start going to the death knell. There it is. Now the death knell is full.
Skin and Bones, when it kills you, does it remove you from play? Prevent you from collecting a corpse?
Maybe. Hold on.
Anyway, if we misplayed that, feel free to comment on it.
This model gains the destroyed model's corpse token, and the destroyed model is removed from play. Are those things mutually exclusive, or do they have to happen, both of them? If he can't gain a corpse, is he still RFP?
Yes.
Okay, then I did it wrong.
Okay. Anyway, not super important. If you've got an insight on this or you want to link a ruling, feel free to post it in the comments below. We wouldn't mind it. If we misplayed this particular element of it, it's worth checking out. Either way, during the course of the game, we filled the Death Knell and that Skin and Bones there, and Evan cleared the remaining champions out with the Cage Rager, who also filled up on corpses.
Yeah. He only gained 1 corpse from that anyway, because he already had 4 off of all the champions dying.
Right.
And the Fenblades, I think.
So the Skin and Bones here cast Lurker and Charge to get into threat, so that eats up 2 of its possible butt attacks.
Correct.
However, it hits the Mauler, and it does okay for damage. Spikes off the hop, gets a big chunk of damage in on the Mauler, hits its second initial attack, and does a little bit below average here. So I'm coping. Another below average attack means it probably doesn't finish the Mauler. Buys an attack, does a good amount.
These are all dice off 2, I believe.
Yeah, Mauler's arm 20, and you have 1 corpse, so you're... Is it dice minus 3?
Dice minus 3, yes.
Yep. Yeah, so you actually did quite a bit to the Mauler, but at dice minus 3, you were not expecting to kill it, and did not.
Mm-hmm. Krabbit moves between the Heretic and the Mauler, jumps forward a bit, just blocking charge lanes mostly. This Carrion Rose, who's going to walk up and do Shepherd's Call to remove a Fury from both the Krabbit and the Cage Rager.
Very nice. Okay, so back over to Troll turn. So my effects that were up expire. The Fenblades resolve their vengeance, and then we're going to go to Reaving. So, vengeance attacks. Make an attack against the crab. Do some damage to it. End up finishing it off. Does a couple of attacks at the Cage Rager. It's really tough to do a lot of work against the Cage Rager here. At arm 21, I'm dice minus 9. I'm only rolling 2 dice. It's only with charges that I'm expecting to do damage, and even then it's only a couple of points. So these Fenblades are at a bit of a mismatch against this Cage Rager. That's okay. Elsewhere on the board, I'm expecting to do a little bit more work. For one thing, Kolgrimma is now in a position to probably clear the zone out of Gremlin Swarms. And if I can start scoring in the zone, that'll make a big difference for me.
especially because I can't score the circle zones, except for with the Heretic. And I'm not necessarily prepared to commit to those while the Mauler's still alive. I don't care much for Kolgrimma's personal threat, because I can't be targeted with spells.
She has a power strength 10 knife.
I don't care much for Kolgrimma's personal threat, because I can't be targeted by spells. And if she tries to target something else, I still have Ruin. But, whatever.
Yeah, she's mostly a blaster caster. She's not really expecting to kill anything with that knife, although it does have Dispel. So I could remove Fury from you and give you a point of defense back. Woo! We're going ahead and just moving the Long Riders up a little bit. They've got an impressive command of 9, so they're just walking this turn. The Long Rider who moves up, he makes his first initial attack against the Krabbit, which ends up hitting. It's power strength 14. Does a bit of damage to it.
Mount attack.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah. So it does a fair bit of work there. Just repositions a little bit. And the one who walks behind the building here repositions a little bit behind the building. I'm trying to make sure I've got a piece that contests there that I can kind of keep in reserve. One of the things that's really nice about the Long Riders is kind of in a late game situation, they end up becoming a unit that scores zones even when there's only one of them left. So I find a really, really mobile late game piece that's just a single guy who can score a circle zone is really worthwhile. Next, we moved in with the Axer. The Axer just advanced and ended up threshing, so it could get just enemy models in its melee range by just sort of turning at a really weird angle.
So you get the Glimmer Imp and the Skin and Moans.
Mm-hmm. And he ends up doing a bunch of damage to the Skin and Moans, which is great.
Yeah, he hit above his weight class a bit.
He did, yeah. So the Stone unit here, they run and go ahead and put up Spirit Chaser to remove Incorporeal. That's a really big deal because I really, really want to kill this Gremlin Swarm. Because even though the Cage Rager can probably contest this zone almost indefinitely, my hope is that eventually the Fenblades will kill it, but they definitely need to have the ability to kill that Gremlin Swarm. So they're going to go ahead and activate next. We're going to fan them out a little bit so I get attacks on multiple pieces. This turn it's just an advance. They do not have Pathfinder, so those guys are moving half distance. The Officer goes ahead and attacks the Gremlin Swarm, misses. One of the Fenblades attacks the Gremlin Swarm. He hits, destroys the Gremlin Swarm. We quickly check the math on that. He puts a Cleave attack into the Cage Rager. Again, dice minus 9, does no damage. This guy back here attacks the Krabbit and does a bit of damage to the Krabbit, but this one's actually the undamaged one because the other one took a bunch of damage before. This Fenblade attacks Cariana and kills her. He opts to remove her from play to prevent Sorrowful Rampage from happening, which triggers specifically on Destroyed.
Yeah, I did not realize that was a thing that could happen, and unfortunately it did.
Because he removed her from play, he doesn't get a Cleave attack. The other model in the forest who got an attack on the Cage Rager made his attack on the Cage Rager and also did basically no damage. They reposition, contesting the zone in a relevant way and still continuing to engage things like the Krabbit there. So the Rune Bearer activates next. He advances. He goes up and puts a spray out. Opts to put it on targets, I think, the Skin and Moans here. Targets a Krabbit next to the Skin and Moans. And, the Gremlin Swarm next to the Skin and Moans. That's what he targeted.
Yes.
Yeah, he killed the Gremlin Swarm with the spray that he cast from Kolgrimma. He doesn't get her Signs of Importance effect on it, but he still managed to hit with his magic ability of 6.
Yes.
Needs a 7 to hit and needs to roll a 5 to kill because he was just outside the Death Knell aura. So Kolgrimma activates. She uses her spray to kill the Gremlin Swarm in the zone. This
is your feat.
Sorry, she feats first and then does so. So I think the goal here with the feat was to score a point in the middle zone with the Mauler.
Because you push a Krabbit out of contesting.
Yeah, I pushed a Krabbit out. I actually pushed the other Skin and Bones out of contesting. She did some pretty good work here. Relevant point, she does not push the Gremlin Swarm out of the zone because incorporeal models don't get pushed, but she does kill it with her spray.
Correct.
And because it's outside of your control, you don't have the opportunity to ruin that.
Yes.
You ruin everything.
But it's fun.
Yeah, that's fair.
I don't ruin my own fun.
That's, well,
And I
Remains to
mean,
be
if
seen.
I'm having fun, then nothing else matters.
I had someone tell me at the tournament this weekend that fun is a zero-sum game, that there can only be only a certain amount of fun at a table, and if you're playing Haley 2 and you're having a lot of fun, then your opponent can't be having any fun.
Oh, oh dear.
It's not maybe the way I play the game, but it is interesting.
Mauler.
So Kolgrimma also put Rage up on the Mauler. So he walked into melee and started doing a bunch of damage to the Skin and Bones. Bought an attack, ripped up his face a whole bunch.
Yeah, you do a lot here.
I get to
This
do,
is probably the spell I should have ruined.
possibly, yeah, targeting my Mauler with Rage there.
Mm-hmm.
I think at the point she did, she had the ability to cast it a second time, but it still probably would have been worth forcing me to do that.
Yep.
The other thing is that what actually happened there is the Mauler like made its initial attack hit, boosted it, hit its second initial attack, and then made a chain attack grab and smash, which was a headbutt,
Mm-hmm.
knocked the Skin and Bones down, and then was able to finish it pretty quickly. And then he forced to regenerate after also snacking the Skin and Bones. So that Mauler healed for 5 points this turn,
Yeah.
which is pretty big. He wasn't like he was banged up a bit, but not super damaged. I think he had 14 boxes left, and now he has 19. So instead of being less than half, he's at about 2/3 health, which is actually kind of a pretty big swing point. Also, because Kolgrimma scored the circle zone and the Mauler scored the rectangular zone, I am at this point on 2 control points.
Yeah. So on my turn, important note, the Cage Rager in the bottom zone frenzies. And this turns out to be a huge thing later on in my turn. Because he would have been just if he were able to activate, he would have just allowed me to decimate that unit of the Creelstone unit in the bottom zone.
He also, in frenzying on one of the Fen Blades, got to take 2 free strikes, which is crucial because these guys need the boosted damage attacks against him if they're going to chip away at this Cage Rager. And it certainly is happening very slowly right now.
Yeah. But had he not frenzied, I would have been able to run the Death Knell up to Entropic Force the stone unit, and then I steal Kolgrimma's Spray 10 thing, and I just spray the stone unit, and hopefully kill the stone itself, and then that causes problems for the rest of Tim's army. On that side of the
it
table.
drops the aura. I mean, if you wanted to get even more adorable, you could have ran the Entropic Field Death Knell up, and then had the Cage Rager like get into melee with the stone itself.
Yep.
Because his attack's removed from play, which would prevent me from promoting a unit commander.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'd nominate a unit commander, but prevent me from promoting the leader model.
Yeah.
And permanently remove that stone aura, which is some cool Grimkin tools.
Unfortunately, can't do those things. This Krabbit moves up. I can't jump behind this officer that is engaging the Cage Rager without being out of control, so I decide not to do that and just charge and boost to hit.
I think actually just walked
I
and
just
boosted
roll
a
it.
hit.
Yeah.
Yeah, boost damage.
I boost both.
Right.
Yeah.
And you do a bunch of damage to the officer, but not quite enough to kill him.
Not quite enough.
He is in the stone aura, which helps him out quite a bit here.
Mm-hmm.
I did do that thing Evan talked about where I kind of really had to pull the stone pretty wide this way. But again, the stone is mostly still centrally deployed because 11 inches is just such a huge bubble for the stone.
Yes. This is certainly a moment where Max Stone matters.
Yes. Max Stone matters. You heard it here first. Hashtag Max Stone.
So, I have a couple of things I have to do this turn. I still want to... Here's the Death Knell moving up to be a bit of a nuisance in the bottom zone still. Help clear out some models.
So I wondered why you didn't have this just tow both zones.
My intention was to reposition it, because I thought it was a battle engine that had a reposition. And then I checked the card, and it wasn't. And I was like, damn, I've been playing too many derp turtles.
Yeah.
This isn't a derp turtle. What kind of battle engine is this?
That is fair. So you actually don't kill that Fenblade with your 2 initial attacks at Mat 6.
Yep. It's bad.
So it's time for the Heretic to spray a bunch of stuff. Sprays for days.
Yep. I decided I still want to deal with that unit a bunch. I only have a couple of the models in Entropic Force Aura because I couldn't quite get within the range because of that one Fenblade being alive still and the Cage Rager not being able to clear it out. But, you know, it happens. So I'm just going to try to kill as many of the stone unit as possible. Hopefully drop the aura so that the Mauler is no longer in it in the top zone, and that will basically guarantee the Skin and Bones or the Cage Rager killing it.
I think we talked about this during the course of the game, but one of the reasons you didn't charge the battle engine at that Fenblade and impact it and then get a 3 dice to hit attack is because they have hard, so they're immune to impact attacks. And you wanted the 2 Mat 6 attacks to roll a 6 rather than the 1 boosted Mat 6 attack.
Yeah. Maybe a mistake. Maybe it would have been better to get that singular 3 dice attack, but you know.
Yeah, I mean, hindsight being 20/20, but...
Correct.
So, as we previously discussed, the Mauler is currently in range of that aura. The Heretic advances his 6 inches, gets into range to do great work with the spray. You don't get Signs of Importance on your spray.
Correct, but I'm still a Fury 7, which helps. I hit the first guy, missed the second, missed the third, and hit the fourth. So I think I missed the actual stone itself.
You do. You hit the Fenblade, you kill him with authority, and the guy at the back, you hit, and he makes a tough check because he's out of entropic field. We check.
Yep.
You actually missed the attack roll against the guy who is in entropic field.
Yep.
Among the stone aura.
Not great.
You debate casting the spray again. So I think at this point you're just deciding, like, do I
go to
ham?
0?
Yeah.
Is the question.
And
I think that I'm going to kill the Mauler this turn, so I decide to do it anyway. I hit all the spray attacks. I kill, I think, all the important parts, except a tough check means that the Mauler is still in your stone aura by 1 inch.
Yeah, so I lose an inch on the stone aura, but the Mauler is still just in because the other guy in this unit toughed. The guy who was knocked down just automatically died to the spray, but one of the other guys who was hit by it did make his tough check.
Correct. Now the Skin and Bones is trying to clear out the middle zone a little bit more. I think he's killing...
the Axer.
Yeah, the Axer.
Just messing up the Axer.
And the one Tuffalo that went in on the Crabbit and the Glimmer Imp.
Yeah, the thing about this turn is I'm losing a lot of pieces. So, it puts you almost to max on that Skin and Bones, but I think it's probably worth it for the amount of damage that you do to me.
Cage Rager going in on the Mauler.
Charging, I think, specifically to get into the zone here to contest meaningfully. And makes its first attack. Hits.
Dice off 3, not great.
Yeah, because I'm still armed 20. Dice minus 3. And you do 4 points. So I still have 15 boxes.
Probably a better idea than casting the spray a second time would have been to arc Fury through this Cage Rager onto itself.
I think the debate for you was if you can kill another piece, which on pretty reasonable dice you do, you drop my armor by 2, which is almost as much as Fury is, and you do attrition work to my army.
Correct.
So that's kind of the yin and the yang of this. If anybody was like, why don't you just cast Fury? Like that's sort of where the debate was. Did a bunch of damage to the Mauler, but obviously didn't quite kill it. He's still got, I think, about 12 boxes left. Fenblade unit gets to Vengeance again because the frenzying Cage Rager did some work against them. We're putting some attacks into that Crabbit there, and the Cage Rager
sure died.
Yep. So softened up the Crabbit, got to kill it, put a couple of attacks on the Cage Rager. I think I also put an attack or 2 into the Death Knell here. Neither of these targets are really ideal for Fenblades. They really are really having a tough time. And I'm like, oh man, if I can only drop this Cage Rager's armor by 2, I could really kill it. Let me just kill this Fenblade with 1 billion boxes and arm 20. Like oh, arm 20. That's so nice. I'm only dice minus 8 on 2 dice.
Instead of dice minus 9 on 2 dice.
Yeah, I don't have really the tools in this zone to adequately be dealing with the pieces that Evan's putting in, which is kind of what happens in some War Machine games in the mid to late game stage.
So here Kolgrimma actually, I think, charges or moves up into the Cage Rager's face.
Yeah, she has native Pathfinder, so she moved up into position. She got a weird vector here.
Sorry, this is currently a proxy base. She hasn't actually moved yet, but you're debating it.
Yeah, we're talking about what would be possible here. We look at what a charge would be. We look at what a vanish plus move would be, and we look at a couple of different options. Activate the Rune Bearer first, who just hard rolls that crit stationary and freezes the Skin and Bones over there. It's pretty dope. Dice
disagree. Strongly disagree.
Still does
not
damage.
Dope.
And I'm like, oh, Skin and Bones. If he's like stationary, like that's one less attack you get. That's obviously pretty relevant. We come up with some members of the Stone who activate. They're moving over to meaningfully contest the center zone, to sort of fan the unit a little bit wide to protect the Stone as much as possible, block line of sight from the Heretic to the Stone member itself. They put up their aura, and they try to kind of protect themselves. I look for like where the Stone aura is going to end up being once they're done. The Fellcaller, who got Stone Strength from the aura, he actually charges the battle engine and misses. He's mat 6. He can Fellcall himself, but he doesn't. He hits his second initial attack, and he puts a fair chunk of damage into it. He's a weapon master.
2 points.
But again, power strength 11. He's dice minus 9. may have been 4 points, but it's still like it's not. We're not winning any awards here. The remaining Long Rider comes up to try to use his slightly higher POW to do work against the Cage Rager. He hits his attacks pretty readily and
crushes the damage. Does more damage to the Cage Rager than all of the Fen Blades have combined over 3 turns.
And multiple vengeances.
So
this is my, I need to bring in the tools that can actually deal with this zone and start pressuring that scenario win. I'm up 2 points, but I'm losing pieces that can crack armor in a really real way, and Evan is an armor list, so I need to deal with this. So Kolgrimma, she activates...
Moves to the proxy base.
Yep. She goes ahead and puts a spray out. Now, notably, the spray targets specifically the Skin and Bones. So you ruin the first one. Or no, yeah,
you ruin the first one.
You ruin the first
Arcane
one.
Vortex it because it's outside of 3 from the Cage Raider.
Yeah, and she spikes pretty well on the damage there, and does a bunch of work.
I do, however, Arcane Vortex the rage you cast on the Mauler.
Yeah, that's pretty clutch. The Cage Rager spends 1 to cancel my rage, which changes the damage output math on the Mauler really aggressively, and I don't quite have enough to recast it there. So, it's time for the Mauler to go.
Sorry, I don't think I actually ruined one of those sprays. Did I?
No.
We'll find out.
Okay. Either way, I've stationaried that Skin and Bones, so I'm a little bit less afraid of it. The Mauler is doing... Basically what he does is he makes his 2 initials against the Skin and Bones, which he auto-hits, and then he does a chain attack, grab and smash, and throws it away. The argument being it's now knockdown and stationary, and it's taken a bunch of damage, so maybe at this point it just doesn't have enough gas in the tank.
Yep, that one.
Yep, to do the work it needs to, and then I can buy 5 attacks on the Cage Rager and hopefully kill it. Power Strength 16, even the Cage Rager who's out of the Death Knell aura is armor 19. So I'm just at dice minus 3. I'm just not really doing enough work to it, and the problem is dice minus 3 is really it's about 4 damage per attack, and 4 times 5 is 20, and 20 does not equal 32.
I think you leave it on 2 boxes though.
Yeah, well, it got clipped by the sprays, right? So the Signs Important sprays did a little bit of damage to it, it sort of softened it up a bit. And the Mauler actually is benefiting from the Strength aura, so on those 5 attacks, he actually does 5 more damage.
Yes.
So instead of leaving it on the approximate 15 and doing about another 7 or 8 with the sprays, I leave it on 1, which, as you can figure out, is a bit of a spike.
Mm-hmm. So.
Real messed up Cage Rager. Relatively unmessed up Skin and Bones.
Oh, you forgot to activate your Fen Blades, but we just go ahead and let you do that anyway.
Yeah, we flip back over because I mentioned immediately that I didn't activate the Fen Blades. They're not in a great spot to do very much work at all. So they just kind of move around a little bit. I debate meaningful charges here, but end up they do. I don't remember if they charge or they walk. No, I think they're all walking there. and none of them do any damage to anything.
Woo!
So it's
Meaningful
almost
activation.
as if they didn't activate at all.
So the Skin and Moans shakes both of its the knockdown and the stationary.
Yep.
Death feasts in order to heal its spirit back, then charges the Mauler.
Sorry, Death feasts to heal its mind back.
Yes.
Yeah, if its
That,
spirit was
not
out,
its
it wouldn't
spirit-
be able to
not
shake.
yes.
So
the other way.
it's a very important feature here.
Correct.
It
Not a spirit.
yeah.
The other thing.
It manages to get back in, and it does a bunch of damage to the Mauler, but also actually misses a couple of its attacks,
Yeah.
and kills the Mauler kind of really late in the process. So Kolgrimma Reeves almost to full, but I'm down my Mauler now, which means my pieces left in the list that can crack armor are at an absolute premium.
So here I'm just trying to debate where I can actually put the Heretic. I'm like, oh, I can target my own Cage Rager with the spray. That won't do any damage to you because you're immune to cold. So we're just going to walk up and I guess put Fury on it or something. I don't know. Undecided. Because I actually upkept Fury on myself just because I thought the Heretic was going to be able to go in and do work himself this turn. But where I've placed the Cage or the Skin and Moans means I'm not going to be able to. So... oh no, I do cycle Fury over. There we go. I got within 6 inches. I'm good at this game.
Yeah, and you healed him, and you boosted to hit, and you missed both your initials with 7s.
Correct.
Which is super lucky
So
for me.
by boost, I need to roll boxcars to kill. I don't. Kolgrimma has 3 boxes left, and I'm not in a great spot. As great a spot as I thought I was now, considering that Tim is up 2 control points. 3 maybe in that, just by standing in that top zone every other turn.
Yeah, I think I was up 2 control points when I
you
cleared
also
the
scored
zone
the middle
with the
zone.
feet. Yeah, so middle zone and then the top zone. I didn't score another one, but I didn't clear it here. So I'm only up 2 points right now, but you haven't scored a single point yet.
And we're on turn, I think, 5 or 6 at this point. Maybe 4.
No, this is only 4, but still a 2-point lead is kind of a problem because if I can just clear the Cage Rager, who's on 3 boxes, I'll score another point. And you're starting to run out of pieces.
Yeah. Cage Rager in the bottom zone, still just going at it. He's not got a whole lot other than the Tuffalo and some Fenblades to continue punching. So he's just going. The Death Knell also decided to just hit Fenblades because that's what it's got.
It's got a Fell Color there, and it actually whacked the Fell Color and did a big chunk of damage to him. But the Fell Colors have 8 boxes, which is maybe my favorite thing about them.
Yeah, it's pretty big.
It is. So, we're back, and it's
vengeance time!
yeah, and more meaningless Fenblade attacks. This time they spike a little bit. We do 3 damage each with a couple of the Fenblades.
Alter the Death Knell.
Yeah, and the Death Knell, I think, did it spend corpses to heal last turn?
No, it hasn't done that yet.
Yeah, it actually hasn't taken very much damage is
Yeah.
kind of the problem.
This is the first damage outside of the Fell Collar that it's taken.
Yeah, and I'm really hoping I can kill it, but it's just, like, doing the math, it's not very likely. I mean, the thing about Fenblades is if you roll enough dice, eventually you're going to spike, and that's what this turn represents. A little bit of a spike. But 6 damage to it is, I mean, I don't want to say basically nothing, but it's basically nothing.
You go to Vanish, I Arcane Vortex it with the Cage Rager.
Cute play here, yep. I'm like, I will Vanish, and Kolgrimma will be able to leave the melee range of this Cage Rager and this Crabbit. And you're like, no.
And also, it can only be cast once per turn, so you
Sure
can't
can.
do it again.
So I'm like, well, that's super bad. We'll spray the Skin and Moans over there, clip the Cage Rager, and do a little bit of damage to it. And a little bit of damage is actually enough
Stationary.
to crit stationary it. I boost the damage on it. I believe I hit the Skin and Moans as well. I boost damage on the Skin and Moans. And I spike a ton of damage on the Skin and Moans here. So, like, Signs Importance plus boosting is worth a lot of damage, it turns out.
Yep.
Um,
And this actually lets you get away.
Yeah, I asked, like, is anything out on this Crabbit here? And I think...
Yeah. So I think that's where I actually used my Ruin, because you only sprayed the Skin and Moans once.
Yes.
And you're down more Fury than you otherwise would be.
I end up having to spray the Crabbit as well.
Yes.
So spent 1 to vanish, and then spent 3 on sprays, and got to make 2 of them. So that was your moment for ruin.
Yes.
That Skin and Bones, like it's taken a chunk of damage, but it's still not actually that injured, which is kind of great for you.
And it's still got plenty of corpses to heal with.
Yeah, the Rune Bearer here goes and he throws some attacks against the Skin and Bones and against the Heretic. Misses the Skin and Bones, hits the Heretic, rolls okay for damage. Stone Unit goes next. Kolgrimma, she's Owl's Wisdomed herself. She's way at the back of the zone. She Spirit Reaved back to full, and she's still on like 3 boxes. So I'm like afraid, but I'm trying to just use distance to protect myself as much as I can, and my native immunity to spells. But like 3 boxes, that shit's scary.
Yeah, she is super low.
We go ahead and activate the Fen Blades here. Got some charges. Yeah, charges on that death knell, and they roll about as well as they did on their vengeance attacks, each doing about 3 damage. And one of them turned to the Cage Rager. So that's like, it's not great. I'm looking at this and I'm like, I wonder if that Skin and Bones can just kill me. It's just a little bit out of charge range. The Chronicler runs over. I'm thinking maybe I'll need him to contest the zone here or contest the middle. Keep the stone pretty well fanned out and protecting the pieces they can. Obviously, the Stone Aura is not protecting Kolgrimma at this point. So, Evan, what you got for me?
So, here's the original plan. You can see I have these steppers out. So, obligatory plug here. This is going to be another episode where we give away some steppers because we still have 2 sets to give away. So, for this episode, leave a comment below and tell us what you'd like us to play, because we're running out of ideas and starting to do doubles, clearly. So let us know.
Yeah, I mean, I like doubling up on casters because I think it shows some depth, but show us if specifically if you've got like a matchup in mind too. I mean, casters, matchup, or even a specific kind of list. We obviously only play Painted on the channel, so if you've got something for that, let us know. But if you leave a comment and we draw you randomly, we'll contact you, get your shipping info, and send you a pack of steppers. The thing they were useful for here is they give you really precise movements if you need to like kind of go around corners and stuff. And Evan wanted to know if you could run the Skin and Bones close enough to Kolgrimma to Hex Blast the Skin and Bones in the back, not targeting her with a spell, but clipping her with blast damage.
I couldn't.
Just a little bit out. Which we knew with quick precision and efficiency on a clock.
Correct. Which is important at this point because I'm at 6 minutes left.
Yep.
So I'm just rolling dice, honestly, at this point, trying to figure out a plan. How do I kill Kolgrimma or prevent her from scoring or just get something into that zone? At this point, I have some models to clear in the middle zone because I don't want her to be able to score 2 zones at once and just go to 5, so I have to kill some models there. And then I think I might have gotten a little tunnel visioned at this point on, oh, there's a bunch of stone units, I have to kill them. How am I going to kill Kolgrimma? Well, we'll think about that later in the turn. What I probably should have done is just run the Heretic screaming into the top zone. Because if I do that, then next turn, I might be able to just charge Kolgrimma. So, instead what I do is I charge the Rune Bearer, get pretty close to Kolgrimma anyway. I have to Lurker. I might actually just walk here. And Lurker to get Pathfinder. Again, Steppers being super useful, letting me get around the Skin and Bones and into reach of the Rune Bearer. And then I get into a position where I, next turn, might be able to score the zone myself and threaten Kolgrimma. But again, without being able to target her with spells, it's causing me a lot of problems actually threatening her because she just keeps running away. Yeah, I think you kill a couple members of the Stone Unit with the Heretic here. This is the
this is the Skin and Bones activating.
Clearing out.
Yeah, you decide you want to activate him first. He spends some of his corpses to heal himself, kills some stone members to get himself back to full, and then the Heretic advances into the zone.
Yep, this time it's a charge.
Oh, sorry, charges into the
Kills
zone.
the Rune Bearer.
Kills the Rune Bearer.
Who toughs? I buy an attack, kill him.
And he dies. So this is pretty good. At this point, you have scored my zone.
Yep. I also decide, hey, I have your spray. I might as well use it. Gonna spray the stone unit. Get some more attrition play in.
Kills a member of the stone who does not tough. So the stone aura has shrunk pretty dramatically now. The stone itself does tough when you spray it.
Which I'm okay with. It means it can't run.
Yep. And that's actually pretty relevant because what a smart player would do at this point is run that stone into the top zone and have Kolgrimma just be able to leave the zone and not worry about it at all.
Yeah.
Fenblades, Attrition, or pardon me, Vengeance. Smack the Heretic. Get out of here. And they make some more attacks on the Death Knell and are a little bit ineffectual about it. Chronicler can't get in range to contest the zone. Stone can't quite run into the zone. So I'm like in a bit of a weird spot here because you're actually scoring that zone right now. I mean, so's Kolgrimma, but you know, it's there.
Yeah. In terms of that, it's the active player scoring, so.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway,
Maybe?
I'm still ahead on scenario points right now.
Yep.
So Kolgrimma dumps a bunch of her Fury to heal. Gets herself back. I mean, I don't have any War Beasts to transfer to, so at this point, I'm just Spirit Reaving every turn. Like, that's all I've got.
Yep.
So she Spirit Reaved the 3, and she healed 3, goes back up to 7. And that's pretty good. She walked behind a wall, and she put her spell up, her ability up, Owl's Wisdom, so she can't be targeted by spells. And she's far enough away from the Heretic that he charges 9-11, so you're just towing into the zone. I'm just towing into the zone, so I've got basically most of a 12-inch zone between us.
Yep.
And
You
the
finally
Fell Caller does the
kill
killing
the
blow
Death
to the Death Knell.
So at this point, I can't get in range of Kolgrimma with the Heretic. It's the last turn of the game. The Skin and Moans can't get there.
I have a narrow scenario lead.
You have a narrow scenario lead, as you put it, and I can't cast spells at you, so I can't go for a spell assassination either. So Tim's basically got this on lockdown. I think about it basically until my clock expires with the 30 seconds I have left, and there's not a way I can do this at this point in the game. So that's basically it. I mean, I think I just go run the Skin and Moans to contest, but even then, I don't, like, if I score a point, you're still ahead by 1 at the end of the turn.
And I have the bottom turn,
And
so
you
I
have
have
the bottom
one
turn.
last opportunity to score a point.
And you don't even need to, because at that point you've won.
Yep.
So that's the game.
And I have adequate time to take a 15-second minimum turn,
Yeah.
which is the other important part. Yeah, so we tidy that up and we shake hands, and that's where we're at. Once again, comment in the comments below. There were a couple of little moments in that game that were kind of interesting and really maybe decisive. So if you've got some feedback on those, we'd love to hear it. If you were at Captain Con and you got to hang out with us this weekend, awesome. Thanks very much. We love seeing people who enjoy our videos, and it's kind of the most rewarding part of the process. And if not, hopefully we'll see you at the next show. I think we're going to be at Adepticon.
Yep, so basically our con schedule for the next couple of months is Captain Con, Adepticon, the Sioux.
Yep.
And then beyond that, I'm a little foggy. I think you might have had a couple more on lockdown.
I've got Nova for sure, and then the WTC, which is a little event in Poland this year. And then War Machine Weekend.
We're both going to that.
Yeah, Evan's going to come to the WTC. He's one of the alternates for Team Canada, and he's going to be playing in the Solo Masters.
Woo!
So you'll get to drink beers with Evan in Poland if you're one of our European fans who's attending the WTC this year.
Yep, super hype. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, it's gonna be awesome. And like, odds are he'll end up playing for some team somewhere because almost always the alternates get called up to do something.
Cool. All right, guys. Thank you very much for watching this week on Arcane Assist. We will see you next time.